Once again, 26/11 mastermind Hafiz Saeed has surfaced in Pakistan, but this time he publicly praised the Pathankot attack, making a mockery of the $10 million bounty on his head. An upset India says they're concerned that he still enjoys freedom. But the question is whether this just proves Pakistan's doublespeak on terrorism and the promise to fight against all terror groups.
Praise for the Pathankot attacks from none other than the 26/11 mastermind Hafiz Saeed at a public rally in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. The Pakistani ideologue behind the Lashkar-e-Taiba walks free in Pakistan in spite of a $10 million bounty on his head. Once again threatened more terror strikes, saying his men would continue to shed more blood, even as Prime Ministers Modi and Sharif attempt dialogue between India and Pakistan. Predictably, India's response was terse.
We are seeing now Hafiz Saeed making statement after statement, and his rallies are being covered. So, I think obviously the concerned individuals, organizations need to take their actions.
India has sent what it calls actionable evidence to Pakistan to prove that the 6 terrorists who opened fire in Pathankot were from Pakistan. The attack on the 2nd of January ended the afterglow of Prime Minister Modi's surprise visit to Pakistan very quickly and effectively scuttled planned talks between the foreign secretaries of both countries in Islamabad. For now, Pakistan has asked for more evidence in connection with the Pathankot strike, and Delhi has said there are no mutually convenient dates to meet for now. Given Hafiz Saeed's freedom to rabble-rouse across Pakistan with impunity, in spite of India's repeatedly asking for action against him, it is unlikely a meeting will be rescheduled anytime soon, unless Islamabad takes some action against those responsible for terror strikes across India. With Maya Mirchandani, Namita Mittal, NDTV.
Well, joining us tonight, Ambassador K.C. Singh. Sambit is still with us. We have Lieutenant General Talat Masood joining us from Pakistan, and Musharraf Zaidi as well. General Talat Masood, sir, let me ask you first. We watched this scene of Hafiz Saeed, make these threats, praise the Pathankot attack, and I'm sure you don't blame a lot of Indians for asking, is this double speak? Is Pakistan really serious post-Pathankot about going after anti-India terror groups?
Well, as far as the doublespeak is concerned, you could say that in that sense. But the problem is that, unless India moves also politically, it becomes very difficult for Pakistan to suppress these people. So I think if you really want to strengthen the hands and allow the political process to move forward, it's extremely important that India should engage in dialogue with Pakistan so that these people are sidelined. The problem is that India's, in a way, attitude encourages these people to talk the way that they are doing. And it puts the Pakistan government because it is very sincere in trying to sort of have a good relationship with India. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif is genuine about improving relations. So are all political parties in Pakistan, and so is the military. But the fact remains that unless, the Kashmir problem and other problems...
So with all due respect, if that's the case, that's like saying it's India's fault that Hafiz Saeed is threatening attacks on us and justifying Pathankot. That can't be fair. That can't be fair. And if the military and everyone is on board, and this is all-round greatness, then why are these groups still doing this? Why are these open threats being made? This man has a $10 million US bounty on his head. He's been designated as an international terrorist. Why isn't he under arrest until now?
Well, I mean, in India also people keep on saying a lot of things about Pakistan, but this does not mean that that is the Indian government's position, or it is the Congress position or the BJP's position. So I think you have to understand that different groups and different people have different views about how to solve the India-Pakistan stalemate. And I am of the view that
he's an internationally designated terrorist, sir. He's designated a terrorist. He has a $10 million bounty. Name me anybody in India who has a $10 million bounty on their head, and I'll agree with you if there is an equivalence. But there isn't. Musharraf Zaidi, I'd like you to come in on this, Musharraf, because we've seen that actually things have got derailed after Pathankot. And when you see Hafiz Saeed openly making these threats, it makes it more difficult for a dialogue to take place.
Well, I think then, the thing that, first of all, I don't think that any Pakistani sort of is going to claim that there's equivalence, any reasonable Pakistani. There are people on other channels that are brought in specifically to make those kinds of cases. I don't think you'll hear that case, General Masood, and I don't think you'll hear it from me, which is why you've invited this. if we're going to speak plainly, the challenge in this scenario is that you have a bunch of people who are explicitly aiming to break down the bilateral relationship and have a seat at the table. And the consistent message from people who have been pro-normalization for several years has been that the process of dialogue must be uninterrupted and uninterruptible. And that is simply code for saying that no matter what happens in terms of these non-state actors conducting these kinds of activities and making these kinds of provocative statements, that the behavior of the two governments and the two states must be immune to their.
Why is it so difficult to arrest this non-state actor, alleged non-state actor Musharraf? It's a simple question. If he has a bounty on his head and he's not entirely a non-state actor, let's be clear, why is it so difficult to put him behind bars?
Well, he's entirely a non-state actor, entirely, completely, and utterly. He's never served in government. He's not part of the Pakistani state. He's certainly not part of any part of the Pakistani state that exists today. As it exists today, the same Pakistani state that sent out General Nasir Janjua to Bangkok, and the same Pakistani state that welcomed Prime Minister Modi in Lahore at the level and the stature that Prime Minister Modi enjoys in other world capitals as a global superstar. So I think it'd be very clear that the Pakistani state, the Pakistani political system, and the institutions of the state have behaved quite consistently in the recent past.
All right,
now,
let me ask Ambassador K.C. Singh then to weigh in on this here. Ambassador Singh, what is your take on this speech by Hafiz Saeed today? Obviously, it's a grave provocation on his side, but doesn't this make dialogue all the more difficult?
See, firstly, I think he's very cleverly chosen the evening before what Pakistan celebrates as Kashmir Day, which is tomorrow. Now, his having made that provocative statement on the eve of Kashmir Day, it makes puts Pakistan government in a deeper corner than they normally are, because now he becomes a martyr if you take any action. And it is true that the Pakistan government has never told us that they have any desire or any capability of restraining Hafiz Saeed, because they say the courts have let him out. And that's the standard argument, that we've arrested him a number of times, but the courts we've not been able to prove a case. And if I'm not mistaken, the American bounty is really to seek evidence to prosecute him. It is not strictly directly a bounty. So he remains in that gray zone where he can play this game. And now he's complicated it by bringing the focus back on Kashmir. And is that what the deep state in Pakistan also wants? He has some support in that. And what General Masood is saying is that we carry on discussions, and so in strengthen our hands means that Pakistan has been able to take it back to the old position that dialogue and terror will carry on at the same time. If the dialogue proceeds well, then we will curb the terror, otherwise not. And that puts the BJP government in a very tough corner, because they've said the two can't go on at the same time. So therefore, how do they need something to be done by the Pakistan government on Pathankot. Now, there's no confirmation that the leadership of Jaish-e-Mohammed has been in any way apprehended, forget about prosecuted or arrested. And on top of that, we find this person linking up with Pathankot, which means he's creating a bridge between different tanzeems. He's endorsing what Jaish has done, and he's encouraging his own group. And we know both the groups have functioned to support terror in India and to abet it. So this is one of those things where they're cornering the Indian state into either lumping it and having the dialogue on those terms, or so be it.
Well, so Sambit Patra, doesn't this put the government of India in a difficult position, coming after the Prime Minister's visit to Lahore, a dialogue process that is, well, kind of there, but hasn't quite taken off, because the foreign secretaries were supposed to meet a month ago. We were told a month ago that they were going to meet in the very near future, and that future has now stretched to a month. So, where are we going from here, Sambit?
Nidhi, in fact, I would not be able to preempt as to what the government is doing right now. But yes, difficult position surely. It is really difficult to buy peace from a country which does not want to sell peace. It's really difficult. But in fact, before I go into any other statement, I was reading the Pakistan's famous newspaper report, that is Express Tribune. Only about 3 days ago, the Tribune had a very great, important article. The article was about the submission of the 4-page policy report by the National Assembly Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs, headed by Ahmad Lahari of the ruling party. And the suggestion made in this 4-page policy report is Pakistan, in fact, should not give active support to armed, banned and militant groups in Kashmir. I quote, Pakistan should not encourage calls for active support of armed, banned, militant groups in Kashmir. So, just imagine, this is what India has been stating right from the very beginning, and this is what their own foreign policy is stating. This is what their foreign policy report is advising the Pakistani dispensation, that please don't encourage any kind of armed militant group into Kashmir. And what Hafiz Saeed is saying today is exactly an extension of what has been advised. So, the 2 senior Pakistani spokespersons are present. It's an irony whether they are accepting this own report seriously or not. I think Mr. Mashood should answer. Mr. Mashood was saying that.
I take that to you because then it comes to the question of firstly, let's acknowledge who's a state actor, who is not, and whether there are non-state actors who've been used as assets by sections of the state in the past and continue to be used as assets against India, or what they see as assets against India, and therein lies the problem. I mean, look, India hasn't even been told anything's happened to Masood Azhar, even a detention. After Pathankot. Why do you think the foreign secretaries aren't talking? It's very difficult for India to sell a peace process back home if we're going to be attacked.
Well, I agree that these people are not wanting Pakistan and India to have good relations, and they make these statements deliberately because they want their voice to be heard, and they also want to pressurize the government by making these statements and also embarrass them. There is no doubt about that. But the point here that I'm making, and I think my colleague is doing the same, is that if you really want to weaken them, there also has to be a definite movement on the part of India. This is how I am seeing the whole scenario for the last several years. There is no doubt about it that these voices should not be raised because they create complications. But is the state strong enough in view of the fact that India does not cooperate? So, we also have to bear in mind that the state does not want to give an impression, or the government does not want to give an impression that it is just coming under pressure from India and is submitting to what India wants. Because after all, there is this problem of resistance in Kashmir, the problem what is happening in your part of Kashmir. I think that is a very serious matter for us, because I think there is across the border there is a lot of sympathy and support for each other. So I think that aspect you cannot ignore.
I can tell you that there is no support in Kashmir for terrorists. And there's a difference between, I think, what may be angst or alienation that they feel vis-a-vis India, but I don't think they support people with guns coming across and killing people, and that's the bottom line. But Ambassador Singh, what General Masood and Musharraf said is important, and I'd like to ask you to dwell on this, that if you really want to weaken these groups, there has to be movement by India. In other words, you have to let the dialogue keep going on and not stop it, because that's exactly what they want should happen. Now, do you think that that is possible? Can India afford to do that? Because if we do that, there is going to be another attack, possibly more than one, and politically that has a huge fallout. Is it possible for India to have an uninterruptible dialogue?
Look, Prime Minister, I think took a very brave step in going to Lahore. He staked his reputation on that. Now, what they need to do is, nobody is saying that you wrap up these groups overnight, but certainly a restraint can be put on Hafiz Saeed not to make these statements. And after Pathankot, some specific action, at least the beginning of some action, would also provide the government here some leverage. Because after all, this government is also not functioning in a vacuum. This is not an authoritarian state. This is also a democracy. So they also need to explain to their constituency and to the people of India. And look at the assurances given to India by General Musharraf in 2002, General Musharraf in 2004, that their soil will not be used. I'm sure there are other laws which forbid these kinds of statements. This is open, blatant abetment of terror. Forget about India. Forget about any complaint from India. How can somebody stand and openly and blatantly abet terror against a neighboring state? I'm sure there are any number of laws in Pakistan under which he can be held even without an Indian complaint. At the very least restrained or shut up for a few days so that India has an opening hand too.
That's a very valid point. Musharraf, can I take that back to you before I come back to Sambit on that? That, you know, that there needs to be something that Pakistan needs to be seen to be doing on Pathankot as well. You need to give India that space then to be able to respond. And the point is, what's really changed after Pathankot?
Well, what's changed, Nidhi, is that we're back to the same place that we end up being in when these terrorists decide that they are ultimately the arbiters of this bilateral relationship. I think it's true that there's lots of things that potentially need to be done with regard to these groups and the legacy of these groups. I think the larger issue that K.C. Singh would be able to expound on much more usefully, but that is very clear, is that this isn't just about a one-off statement. These groups and what they represent are going to continue to be, for the long run, a thorn in the ability of both countries to conduct business together. However, being a thorn is one thing and being a complete roadblock is another. There's a big, substantial difference in quantum. And I think that when we lend these groups the agency to not only determine whether or not foreign secretaries sit together, but also to determine the shape of our respective national discourses. I mean, here we are again, and it's back to talking about Hafiz Saeed. It's a very the incentive for Hafiz Saeed to do this kind of thing is he's rewarded every time he does this thing when we're talking about it.
Well, no,
so
but Musharraf, people also want to see some accountability because he is a terrorist, and I think that people here want to see accountability, and he just cannot sort of roam freely, and I think that's why it is a sore point with India. But Sambit, the final question to you is that is it possible to continue a dialogue process in these circumstances? Can it be business as usual? Can there be a leap of faith by the government here that we will continue to speak no matter what? Because no talks or dialogue have been broken off. Or does there have to be a very minimum action that Pakistan needs to take first, which is what Ambassador Singh was saying that they need to do?
In fact, two quick points. Right now in this very debate, Mr. Jaidi and Mr. Masood have in fact given away the plot. In the sense, right now Mr. Jaidi was right in pointing out that the countries, Pakistan and India, want to move ahead, but these terrorists, implying Hafiz Saeed, are the ones who act as the final arbitrators. From a non-state small fry, he becomes a terrorist in this very debate. So my question is, if he's a terrorist, as you have rightly pointed out, why is he roaming free and why is he sermonizing? He should be behind bars, because I believe in Pakistan, the legal system is terrorists should not be walking free. He should be behind the bars. And secondly, Mr. Lieutenant General Masood's submission that, well, India should be the first one to act so that we can rein in such kind of non-state actors. To this, I would like to draw his attention towards a statement given by the Honorable Home Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, only yesterday in Jaipur. Mr. Rajnath Singh said that you act against the terrorist, we will stand by you and will help you. This is a categorical statement made by the Home Minister of the country.
Well, for the moment,
you act against Hafiz Saeed, we are there with you.
Well, at the moment, it is a sense of deja vu as we seem to be going through the same cycle between the two countries. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us on the program tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Do join us then.